Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Leading with Integrity podcast. What makes it a bonus episode, I can hear you wondering, possibly. Well, firstly, because there are two guests in this episode instead of one. Secondly, because it's a special additional episode for this week, so there will be two episodes this week, not the usual one. And thirdly, we're trying a slightly different format as well. Two guests means two answers to every question to start with, so that certainly cuts down on the available time. But also it's a different kind of conversation when there's more than two people. So we'll see how we get on with it, and I hope you enjoy it and find it useful. So my guests are today Steph and Debbie, the two halves of Stebbington Ltd. We're going to be talking about the small business that they started together as best friends, best mates, the joy they've got out of that, the career freedom, and then also some of the experiences and lessons of leadership and management that they've learnt during both their new business experience, but also their previous careers and the lessons that they've taken from that and applied to their new company.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Great. So today I'm joined by Steph and Debbie from Stebbington Ltd. Thank you both for taking time out of your day to join me. Much appreciated. And I think best place to start is to give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourselves and your business and I guess what you do, the story so far.
I'm Debbie and I am co-founder with Steph, who will introduce herself in a second. And we created Stebbington. Let me take you on a journey. Many years ago, Steph and I used to work in the old corporate ladder. And we found out that we were really good at we worked in an admin team and we were great at kind of finding where all the waste of time and stuff was. So we took a lot of processes, made them better. And then Steph went off and left me. She moved to China for a while and she went across the world. But we stayed good friends. And about 10 years ago, on a drunken conversation, we decided to just put our name together as Stebbington. And then we really obnoxiously called ourselves Team Stebbington for the next 10 years. And then last year, where I was made redundant in my corporate job, the same job, because I'd gone nowhere. And
you'd worked your way up. Like you're managing a team of 25 people, but
No, I hadn't moved offices. So we decided to let's do it. We'd always talked about creating a business together where we could just make people less stressed, give people more time by using systems and different process tools and mapping and things, and just making people happier. Which sounds a bit like me, but it's actually true.
We really do. We just want to make the world dance.
Yes. Yep. And so that's where we are. So Steph.
I'm Steph. Hi. Yeah, Debbie's filled you in. So that happened. And we focus on helping busy business owners. I'm going to say busy, but most of them are busy and saving them time and money. So I think people don't realize how much they can increase their revenue if they have good processes in place. Because otherwise they're just missing things, missing tricks.
It makes sense to me. I was going to say, do you want to give us an example perhaps of a process or a system? What's usually kind of the quick win, if you like?
I've got one. Automated emails. So when someone comes in, like a new lead or something, one is putting them somewhere, but also then adding in like a little welcome email. So when you get a new client on board, you can automate that so that they're added in, and then you can feed them the info they need when they're working with you. There's obviously loads of extra bits to that, so you can automate as they move through the pipeline, all of that. But that kind of automating welcome emails, contracts, signing, that seems to be a real popular thing at the moment, doesn't it? That's this month's trend. Last month was coaches.
It was always the follow-ups last month. So people would take someone's information, maybe they met them on a networking call and then put them somewhere. But we've implemented quite a few CRMs now, customer relationship management systems. where it automates to remind you to chase that person up if you haven't heard from someone. So therefore you keep your leads all kind of warm and they don't go into the ether of nowhere, and then you don't follow them up.
Okay, and obviously that's very difficult to do, and that's why people need your help.
Obviously. No, yeah, but it's like everything, isn't it? Why do you ask us? Because you can't be an expert in everything. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not like a lot of people are capable, but have they got the time? And that's the thing, the time to learn the system when we already know that system. And now, well, listen, we don't know every single one in the world, but enough to, you know.
Most CRM systems kind of work along the same sort of framework. They all kind of box themselves differently or use different colours or different kind of things, but generally it's all kind of the same. And what we do is we can sort of integrate a lot of the different systems together. So we had one customer who had a booking system, and she had a website, and she had emails, and she had all sorts of things. And so for her to run her business, she had to look into like 88 different systems. And what we did was we put like one big interface kind of in the middle, so everything spoke directly to that. So therefore she only had to get up in the morning and look at the one place and know what her week was up to, rather than looking. So you can take it as small as just sending an automated reminder, or you can make it as big as getting everything to talk to each other, which is what we love doing, because like it's really fun.
Yeah, we love making CRMs and systems dance. And also then the reward of seeing that those clients, like, they're normally elated, to be fair. Obviously they love working with us, and there's sometimes a bit of sadness that we have to leave and move on, but yeah, they do. But it's also the fact that they fall in love with their job again, because they can focus on what they're doing, what they love. And that's, you know, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like, we get one life. Let's do what you love. And that's also why, you know, why we outsource. We're not going to build a website. It could, but that's why we would outsource it, because why spend that time for us doing it when someone else can do it with more expertise? Wow, I feel like this is a Stebbington plug, by the way. So get in touch with us today, guys, and let's see how we can save you money and time.
I suppose in theory you could almost automate an entire business, and then, you know, there's no need for people at all, and we can all retire.
No. Something I've been thinking a lot about. There is a fine line. It's something we do speak to the customers about. As much as you might not like to speak to your customers, there is still this thing in the world called customer service, and I genuinely don't think an AI or a computer can ever take away that human touch. We'd always consider automating as much as possible. However, keeping that line to your customers is more important than saving that bit of time.
Yeah, we want people, but it's about, again, utilizing their time. So instead of a company having to pay someone a full time, or that they're getting caught up doing just shuffling papers, you know, just from one side of the desk to the other, they can actually do more practical things with the job, stuff that they enjoy, take on those extra little projects. And and like Deb said, customer service, like, we both come from strong customer service backgrounds, and it's something that we really encourage. Proactive customer service.
Yes, value add.
Okay, just checking. So I'll cancel my retirement plans.
You were batted straight down with that idea, weren't you?
Yeah. It was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question, if I'm honest, but yeah.
You took it to heart. Well, we told you. No.
Let's move on to the first question then. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from going into business on your own? Well, on your own, together by yourselves?
Well, this is my second business. I did have another business prior to Debbie. That's why it worked so well for us to come together. But the biggest lesson for me, goals. Because that leads on to everything. You need to have proper goals. I don't know if they have to be that realistic, but if you want to reach them, but everything comes from that, the goals that you need to plan to get to. Do you know what I mean? Like, it all comes from that thing. That's for me. That's my biggest lesson.
I think mine is to drop your ego, like leave your ego at the door. Because when you start a business, you have all these thoughts and plans and stuff, and sometimes they just don't work. Sometimes you might have an aspect of your business that you think everyone's going to love this because I love this, and people don't love it. And so you have to learn to be able to be like, okay, all right, well, we won't do that, but how about we move on and do something else? And I think that was probably the biggest one, because we came in We did like one thing at the beginning. We were like, we're going to get hundreds of thousands. So hard. One person out of about 300 people that replied to us, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't really need that." No. It was sad, but we brushed ourselves off, learned, moved on, and kind of mended what we were planning to do in the first place.
That was so funny. Yeah, but I think that's the fun part of being in business, isn't it? And like you said, like not having an ego means you can just laugh about it and go, well, that was amusing, wasn't it? We were well on the wrong track with that. And then something else, you think, oh, well, we'll try it and test the waters. And then it just takes off. So, yeah, it's fun. What about you, David? What's the biggest lesson you've learned since being in business by yourself?
I don't know if there's a biggest lesson. There's quite a lot of lessons, certainly. Yeah, I mean, I think the ego one's a good point. And I think kind of next to that is having a thick skin and being prepared to kind of be rejected a lot. Because I think, I mean, particularly for me, before I started a business, I really had no background in sales. I'd never had to do it. I'd always sworn off it and not gone near it in other companies I'd been involved in. But when you're the only person in the business, you don't have a choice, do you? You have to be the salesperson. So
exactly, you have to do it.
Yeah. So that was quite an adjustment, I think, getting used to the fact that people wouldn't be interested most of the time.
Yeah.
I've got a background in performing arts though, so I'm well used to the old rejection.
Right, okay.
Also very dramatic about it as well. Like you should see it when someone says no to her. But I think you're right though. I think taking that rejection, taking no's, and you have to remember they're not saying no to you as a person. And that's the thing I found, because I was like, oh, but please like me. And it doesn't work. But with what you're saying on that, I would say that is a hard question, because like you said, there's so many lessons. And one of the other things for me is mindset. Mindset is so important as a business owner. Otherwise you won't do it, will you? Mindset is everything, and control is an illusion.
That's a very Thursday thing to say, isn't it?
By Thursday, you mean weird thing to say.
I was trying to be polite, but yeah, okay.
Right, next section.
Yeah. I mean, I think another lesson is don't get too sort of fixed in your ways, and that is a kind of a mindset thing as well, isn't it? And it is very easy to sort of decide, right, this is what my business is going to do, and then you have to be ready to change that, because, for the same reason I just said, people might not want what you're selling. Yeah. So.
And also, and adapting, and that's the thing, isn't it? And that's also, I think, something that small businesses like us have on the larger corporations, is that we can adapt quickly and, effectively. For them, it's a whole department move. For us, it's us just saying, okay, we're going to spend an hour doing that now. Just going with it. And do you not find it exciting, though, with the business evolving? I think that's, I suppose, this, again, mindset. If instead of being like, it's the exciting of like, now let's see where it takes us. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm kind of excited about almost everything I do in the company, to be honest.
You sound it, David.
Just because, yeah. That's just my tone of voice. Leave me alone. But yeah, I mean, genuinely, it's I'm excited about what I do and the fact that I can do it. And maybe that's just because it's in contrast to what I was doing before, and I basically hated where I worked.
It was a very toxic place, though, wasn't
it? It's kind of this newfound sense of freedom. As I could just do that. Like, I don't have to go and have an argument for 6 weeks before I can then still not be able to do it.
It is exciting. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, we're so privileged. Yeah.
I do feel lucky. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I do. I feel grateful.
Best and worst experiences of leadership. Should we do worst first? Get the bad ones out of the way.
Oh, Debs, you go.
Wow. I used to, as I said, from my previous job, worked in the corporate world, and we had the best and the worst experience in that. Now, the worst experience I had was when we had a team leader.
No names.
I had a team leader, but from up high, we was being told, we need to move over to this massive system. She was like, yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Didn't think anything about how the processes were going to go. Didn't think about any of the people in her team, about, change management, about how people were feeling about maybe changing how they were going to work completely. And then at the same time, they were like, oh, there's a new phone system going in on Monday as well. All we got was a meeting where they were like, right, moving over to this. And I was like, but what about this? What about that? She's like, well, we'll figure it out. That was awful because everyone came to work that next week and it was so bad. The morale in the team was just down. No one knew what they were doing. And because we didn't know what we were doing, the customers were suffering, the engineers and stuff, they were suffering because we weren't getting anything done. So then people just start to feel bad about themselves. And, then it just creates this massive kind of fire within the team. And that was the worst because there was no support there at all. It was just get on with it. Just do it. Work it out. Not my problem. So, yeah, that was definitely hands down the worst experience because the whole team just weren't listened to. But it turned out all right in the end.
And why did it turn out all right in the end, Debbie?
Because I took over and I was like, right. Leave it with me. I'm going to make this okay.
I thought you were going to say because I left.
Yeah, I just took it and because I couldn't stand to see all these people I'd worked with for so many years just being so unhappy. It was awful.
I wasn't even there. I just heard about it.
You did.
Oh, my turn. So my worst one. Now I actually have a couple, but I'm going to focus on one because he was just mean. He was a really mean guy. And I'm very much, I like to be positive about things. And I think a happy workplace, I'm not saying sit around laughing and stuff, but, you have a bit of banter as you work. But he was very much into the scaremongering culture. So if you did something wrong, you would get shouted like a child in a building where there's over 100 people working. And it's like, are you for real? Like micromanaged people, belittled people, never praise, but very quick to scorn. We all know those kind of types of people. He's the reason I left my last, that job. I said, no, I'm done because they weren't inclusive. They very much like to say they are. But when people got real, then it was very much like, no, that's it, you're done. You're a number to us, not a person. They were. And it was horrid. It really actually affected not just my mental health, a lot of people's mental health. And even men, grown men being there near enough quaking in their boots because this guy is shouting at them in front of their colleagues.
Yeah. I think, the common theme there is dealing with people, isn't it? And I think that's something where, particularly if you've not been taught how to do it and you're thrown in at the deep end as a manager and you've not given any management training, any kind of leadership tips or anything like that, people don't deal, I
was going to say, so I did some team leading years ago and I was good at my job, but that doesn't mean you have to be a manager. Do you know what I mean? And so I became team leader and I was getting on with, there was loads of problems in the factory and I was fixing all of that and not necessarily letting my team know. And then there was other stuff going on within the team people managing wise that I was dealing with, but quietly without getting everyone involved. So people thought I wasn't doing anything and it was awful. So maybe that was the worst experience because it was me making a terrible mistake. Just because you're good at the job doesn't necessarily mean you should be a manager of that team. And yeah, it took me a long time to kind of get those people skills and people management skills because it's not something that comes naturally to most people.
No, but like that, you did get training and you learned from it. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? I know I'm not a people manager. I'm either all in or not at all. I'm that's not my skill set. That's Debbie's. But I was going to say it's also not just, I think, new leaders, but also old ones. When they've been in the company for a long time, your man, when it's like, well, I think maybe he should have been on one of your courses, to be honest, David, and actually understood people because that's all he was dealing with. Even the clients didn't like him. But
the companies don't seem to want to invest in it. And I think it's so important. You're only as good as your team. And if you've got a rubbish leader in front, but companies just employ people and then because they said the right thing or whatever, but they haven't necessarily done any people management skills. So I think companies should invest in that.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I was talking to a guy in America the other day because I've always assumed this is a particularly UK problem, but it sounds like it's not.
Oh, it's worldwide.
It's much more widespread.
Oh my goodness! I could tell you a story about one employer in Australia. Jeez.
Right.
Did you know? Here's a fun fact for you: psychopaths quite a lot of kind of high up chief executive kind of real proper leaders. Generally, they're quite a lot of them are actual not medical, but like, you know, psychopaths. So that tells you something. So they just go because they have no empathy, so they can just kick and punch and get their way to the top. But again, you get those people to say the right things to the right people, so they move up, but they're not necessarily the right thing.
They're actual psychopaths.
Is it psychopaths or sociopaths? I can never remember the difference. Because I'm sure I remember reading or being told by someone who knew more about it than I did that psychopaths can actually get quite good at kind of mimicking
that's how they
emotions and kind of, and they can actually read people and understand what other people are sort of thinking, whereas sociopaths can't.
Yeah, because they could still kind of feel it because they were made that way, whereas like psychopaths generally just have no idea. So they like see people crying. Anyway, that was completely that's my little criminal psychology thing.
I think it's topical though.
Sociopath. Yeah. Scary that they're in charge. But do you think there's a change in the culture now? Do you think that that kind of that people are training more in leadership, that they don't need the shouting and the toxic, that they're more not punching and kicking their way to the top, but people are more teams? I mean, obviously there's still a need for a lot more.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a change. I mean, there is definitely a change. I don't know if that is what the change is. I think the change is more from the other end. It's the kind of the bottom up. People are less willing to put up with it than they used to be. Yes, that's
it. Yeah, they're more happy to sue. So I think oh no, we don't do
that. Or
just
leave.
Yeah. Well, I think it's when it's leave. It's like when you can see like something for me always is as soon as the business and it says about the staff turnover, then you know, isn't it? Like that's such a clear indication that there is a problem within the company. And how often is it going to be a people problem, as in a leader or well, it only takes one bad apple.
There's that saying, isn't there? And again, I've heard this quite a lot recently. It's been around for ages, but it's the thing, you know, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. I'm not sure that's true. I think, you know, there's a lot of people who stick it out, even though they've got a terrible manager. I mean, I did that. I stuck it out for years longer than I should have. It's not one or the other, is it? I think it's a combination of both. And I think ultimately leaders make the company, don't they? Any organisation, whoever's leading it for a period of time, they are basically creating that organisation. They are setting the culture. And so if you end up with kind of this toxic leader or someone who's never had the training, who doesn't understand people, they're going to create a toxic organisation. Yeah. And I guess the question is, where does the tipping point become where people have had enough? And I think, you know, maybe in the past, people might have stuck it out for a decade or whatever out of loyalty. I don't think they will these days. Yeah, certainly not post-COVID.
And well, the fact is that they know they're not. There's so much now, isn't it? Saying like you're just a number. Like don't work yourself to death because they'll just replace you if you died. All that kind of like attitude. And then it's not wrong. To be fair, like I know I've worked in hospital before. I remember once being in hospital, couldn't even sit up, was still working because I thought that was the right thing to do for the employer. Wouldn't do it now. Well,
I think you would, mate.
Yeah, I would.
It's different when you're running your own business, though.
Yeah.
Especially when there's only one or two of you. Like,
but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. If you're in hospital, I'm sorry, that's a hard line. But it shouldn't be if you're in hospital, then that's a day off. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. It depends how severe it is. Like if your fingers work and you can still type.
Now you can just speak into your phone and it types it for you.
Oh no.
Yeah. See, there's no excuse.
No, but now can we talk about good leaders? Because we have a really good one.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
Can we? Will I go? Tracy. Her name was Tracy Skates and she was a legend. And I say was because unfortunately she did pass years ago. She was, and I don't mean to speak for both of us, but she did. She managed both of us. Debbie, obviously, for longer than myself, but she was actually one of the people that brought me into that company because she was my manager in another company. And she was so supportive, empowering. Debs, your story, we'll go for the humane side, the empathy.
Yeah, she was. So I've got multiple sclerosis, and when I first came down with it, like it's a cold. I couldn't walk, and I remember the day before it happened, and she was like, "Well, you just get out of here and go to the doctors." And I was just like, "No, it's fine. Just my knee feels weird." Anyway, so then I ended up in hospital and stuff. But she, when I came back, I found it difficult to, go into the office and stuff because I was hobbling about everywhere. And then when I eventually was sort of back in, she was like, do you need to work 4 days? And then working from home. And then there was a problem with the team, because the team were like, oh, I can't believe she's working from home, because this was pre-COVID days and everyone had a lot to say about people working from home. And she just called everyone into the team, into the meeting, and just said, look, this is what's happening. Don't really care what you all have to say about it, kind of thing. Like this, she needs to work from home. That's what's happening. And just was really supportive of everything. And if you had any problems, you could go and talk to her. And it was always perfectly, it was a perfect balance between being your friend, but being your manager as well. So I always felt safe, and I knew exactly where I stood with her. And also, she never kicked my butt, but she would kick people's butts if they stepped out of line.
Oh my God. She was inspirational. She was like bear in mind, we were like early 20, like I think I was just 21. I was like, I want to be you when I'm older. Like you, I want to be you. She was, wasn't she? And like, even with that, with the taking the team, no, I wasn't there at the time, but I know Tracy, and I've seen her doing that before. And she does it in a way where she's like, she puts you in your place, but doesn't belittle, doesn't, you know, there's no, it's in a nice way that you'd walk out of the meeting going, did we just get put in our place? Like, she's just really inspirational. And as a woman looking up to another woman in management, it was just amazing. And a lot of what I've learned from her, a lot of what I learned from my management stuff, I learned from her. And everyone respected her, and it was just, she was just absolutely amazing. And as a role model as a woman, and as well as a role model as a management, because she just made you feel like you were part of the team and everything. I couldn't be the same. Nothing. Just everything was good. Everything was good. I think you're really good about, really right about the women thing as well, because just thinking about it, you don't get many. I didn't have many women managers. I think she might have only been the second one I've ever had in my career. Like, it was nice to have that.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the aerospace industry, yes, I've seen very few female leaders.
And this was the construction industry, so like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of self-perpetuating as well, I think, because you get to a point where, you know, the trying to say this without being too stereotypical, but the older white gentlemen who tend to run these businesses. They come back to you when you question these things with statements like, well, you know, none of them are applying. What do you want me to do? Maybe they're not applying because they know what the industry's like. They know the kind of people who end up in management positions, and they know that it's not worth their time.
No, it's when you're interviewing for a manager position and they're asking you, when do you think you're going to have babies?
Yeah, see, that's like flat out illegal though. But, you know, they're not allowed to ask that.
Depends what country you're in, David.
Well,
but even if they don't outright say it, they say it. But they say it, yeah.
I think the thing with Tracy though was because it's very easy to be like male, female managers and stuff, but it was almost like she wasn't a woman manager. She was just a manager, you know. And that's where management needs to get to. It needs to be that you're neither. Like you are just the manager because you're just a person, and it doesn't really matter what sex you are. It's horrible to say, oh, she's a great for like a woman manager, like but shouldn't we say stuff like that? It should be like she was just a great manager. That's up.
I just think it's just that maybe she was a better manager than all the other men managers I've had.
Yeah, absolutely. No, she was great. Male or free.
No, but yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be that divide, but it is, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's the kind of the ideal to get to, isn't it? But I think before we get anywhere near that, we've got to have a level playing field. We've got to all be starting from the same position, haven't we?
Yeah.
And being honest about it. Don't say that it doesn't exist. Isn't that one of the first things with everything? Be aware.
Yeah. I'm sure there are companies out there doing it well. I'm sure there are.
I really think there is. I really do believe there is, David.
The place I worked at before, I'd say wasn't too bad. It depended on what manager you had and what HR manager you had. Because they were really good. For me, with my MS, like with the disability stuff, they were fantastic. Like my other manager, Rachel, she was like a protege of Tracy, so she was proper supportive as well. I was able to get all the kit I needed, and you know, no questions asked. So there are problems, but where I was working before, it wasn't that. It was just depending on who was sitting in that team leader seat that made the problems, and that was why it was the worst experience of management. because the actual company itself, if you kind of went to them, but probably because they're a massive corporation, that they wouldn't dare like not give you something if you needed. So yeah, I've got to stick up for them there, because they were really, really good. But as I said, depending on which person was our team leader, most of the time they were fantastic.
Fair enough.
You worked with them for too long, man.
Yeah. There's no need to show off, but yeah, okay. Yeah.
I just felt like I wanted to add a little balanced opinion there.
No, that's fair. Yeah, well done.
I'm not going to say such things.
I mean, it is interesting, isn't it, that even in kind of a good company, a bad manager can still ruin your experience, and vice versa, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Goes back to the people element, doesn't it?
Doesn't it always, though?
I think so. Well, that was an interesting one. Shall we move on to the third question, which is totally unrelated to the second. But what advice would you give to anyone out there who's thinking about starting their own business, or who recently has?
It's the best thing. I love it when people go out on their own. I think it's so empowering. Network. Like, I know that I was really lucky with Debbie, but not everyone has that. But when I did it by myself, something that held me back for 2 years was I didn't network. Now, that was my own thing. I wasn't, don't like that whole thing very much. No, I do. I love meeting people. I just get very nervous in those situations. And it was all face-to-face then as well. But that's what actually held me back from not just business, but also personal. So network. If you've just started out, just go out and meet business owners, not necessarily to sell to, get a good people around you, so you can learn from each other, support each other, and you're not alone. Because I think business, it can be lonely running a business, because like you said, you're doing everything. And do you ever switch off? Like, I know when I'm eating dinner, suddenly a really good idea comes along and I have to quickly write it down. Like, you don't switch off, do you? So network.
Networking is really valuable. And I was very similar to you. You know, I used to absolutely hate it. And I tried the in-person stuff pre-COVID. Maybe I didn't get the best group for it. I won't name names. I won't say which organisation it was, but you probably know.
Mouse it. Yeah, I think it's the same one that I probably tried first.
Yeah, potentially. And it was, I just found it all really stressful. Yeah, having kind of just recently come out of quite a stressful previous job, it wasn't what I needed at the time. No. So I didn't go back to it for 18 months. And I think that was a mistake. I should have tried something else or tried a different group or different.
Yeah. Anyway. There's a lot of, and now what I think is so great about from COVID is that there's so much more online. Like, it's nice to meet in person. And we do, like, we've done networking with Only. We went down to Brighton, me and Debs, and met people. But it's the productiveness of being online. We don't have to worry about travel time. And then obviously, like, with me, I have a young kid, so that whole school things and all the rest of it. But yeah, I do think it's important. And if you haven't found the right one, then keep trying them until you find one that gives you what you need. Because I think some networks ask for a lot from people. A lot of networks nowadays, they don't. They just want you to come up and support each other, you know?
Yeah, that's it. And it's having that kind of informal support network, isn't it? As you say, especially if you're the only person in your business, having someone to bounce ideas off and just say, I'm stuck with this. Anyone got an idea? And it's really valuable, definitely.
Really?
Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. And yeah, big plug for Only as well. We love that.
Yeah. Debs, what about you?
Yeah.
Just planning. Get a CRM. Make sure you actively review what you do. Every few months, because even if it's you on your own, I mean, it's simple for me to say so, because I've got Steph, so we're accountability partners of each other. But it's like, if you're on your own, I can imagine that sometimes you just get on with your day. But a few months might have passed, and so much stuff has changed, or you've learned different lessons, or you've got different customers. So it's really just get that stuff nailed down quick. A good CRM you're using, or even if you're, a nice notebook. I mean, I do not advocate the use of notebooks. But sometimes that's what works for people. But you've got to think about your business in the terms of scaling it up at some point. So if you end up running your business for a whole year and you've got all this information in your head and it's not neatly put anywhere, and then you decide you want to take someone on, you've then got to explain to this new person everything that's gone on in your head in the last year, and it's just a waste of time. So mine would be get your processes mapped out, written down as soon as possible. As soon as you have them.
It's funny that, isn't it? I feel like she loves processes.
Yeah.
But it just makes so much sense, because I just think, could you imagine if we hadn't written anything down and all the things that we've changed and all the the lessons you've learned, or, and then we get somebody else in and we haven't written down what we like about different systems, or we haven't written down, what this system can do that, so that when you get another customer in, you haven't got to spend the time relearning everything again. So, that would be my nerdy side saying.
I would say failing to plan is planning to fail.
That is a good cliche, though. We like that one.
But it is true. If you plan, I say it to my husband all the time, right? The plan doesn't have to go according to it. It might not work, but if you don't have anything, then
it's really easy to go la 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 la.
Yes, skipping through the fields all day. You're not achieving anything.
Because that's where you'll end up, because you won't have any money from your business. You will just be skipping through the fields.
Probably wouldn't be skipping either. You'll be dragging your feet. You're feeling sorry for yourself because you didn't plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's good advice. I agree. Anyone who's worked with me in the past is going to be very shocked to hear this, but I don't follow that advice. I used to be a very process-driven person. I used to run the quality management systems in the business and things like that. So you have to be really step by step. You've got to document everything and keep records and all of that. But I don't want to say I got bored of that. But I guess when I started on my own, I was like, well, there's no one else. There's not going to be for the foreseeable future. It's okay if it's all in my head or in these pile of notebooks that I held up when you were talking just now for the listeners who don't see the video.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know. Anyway, go on.
It's okay until it's not okay. That's the thing. And I think from where you've come from with doing the sort of QMS stuff, that's really regimented. So you will know by the time you start off on your own what actually needs to be done, because sometimes it's a bit too much. And I'm not saying you have to get a whole massive, load of planning. It could just be a page where you've just written down bullet points or something. It's just get it out and make sure you've got it somewhere, so that, because by the time it gets to the point where you're scaling up and you've got extra people, you haven't got time to then suddenly start. You're obviously busy enough that you need those people, so you're not going to have time to then do all of that. So it's just just give yourself a little bit of time every now and then. Just block yourself out and just have at it.
I would listen to Auntie Debbie on this. I really would. She is right. I also did it, David. Also,
maybe one day. Yeah.
Do it next month. It's fine.
I've got a whiteboard that beginning of each week I write out. Right, this is what I'm doing this week. This is the task on each day and all the calls and everything. So I've got something. It's just
step one.
Yeah.
Looking to finish with the step 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm organised, but I'm not planned. There you go.
Yeah.
That's.
If you don't want to scale your business, then obviously you don't necessarily need that kind of stuff. You're happy doing that. Yeah. But if it came to a point where you suddenly think, I want to make this bigger and have more people in, you will have to do that at some point. So sort of doing that before it becomes we need to do this now. It's like giving yourself a chance. Look after your future self. I'm always looking at future devs. I'm like, if I'm about to have a glass of wine, I'm like, how is future Debs going to feel about this? Is she going to be all right? Future Debs is never happy about it.
No.
But present Deb says yes. The glass is in my hand. I'm going to drink it anyway.
Sod future David. That's his problem. So I'll tell you what though. Past David, I hate that guy.
Always get me into trouble. Always.
We're on the last question, aren't we? All right, so leadership heroes.
You, David.
Thanks. That was easy then. End of podcast. So if you had to pick then a person, alive or dead, past, present, real, fictitious, who you think perfectly embodies leadership, who would that be and why? Accepting the fact that I've used the word perfect and no one is perfect.
Yeah,
so with that caveat.
Mine would be Tracy. She literally just did. And I told you about why earlier. So.
Don't want to repeat yourself. Don't want to bore people. I thought about this, obviously. I think Jim Ron, for me. I think he would be an amazing guy to meet. He seemed to have it right. He was a good leader. And to be honest, David, I'm going to make her head a little bit big here now, but Debbie is an awesome leader. When her team got made redundant, and I'm always around, okay? I always just know what's going on. I saw, just in the corner watching her. the way that Debbie handled the redundancy, the team, and the handover to the new team, because they moved that department to Romania, wasn't it? Was it Romania?
Yeah.
I would need a lot of leadership training, I think, to actually manage people. And I've seen the way that Debbie does it, and it really is. So, yeah, I would join Debbie and Tracy and bring Jim with me, and we would have one big dinner party. I think that's my dream. That's all right. Maybe not dream.
It sounds like a slightly awkward dinner party, if I'm honest.
Pretty weird as well.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds awkwardly fun. Right?
Okay.
Another bit of awkwardness.
Yeah.
Never know where it's going to go. So, yeah. I myself.
I'll tell you what, if we can add Stephen Fry to that dinner party, it'll suddenly make it all right.
That's the first person I thought. I was like, I wonder if Debs will get Stephen Fry into this. And you did. Well done, mate. Well done.
Is he a particularly good leader? I
have no idea, but he's a national treasure.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
David, you could do another podcast on Stephen Fry with Debbie.
Okay.
David, tell us, who's your hero?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could pick one, which is horribly unfair of me because I ask everyone else to. But there's so many, and for different reasons and different periods of history as well. But
it's what resonates with you. So even though there is so many, is there one in particular that you would just be like, yeah, it's just something about them?
I think the one that's always stood out to me, I don't know if you've ever watched Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
A TV series. So obviously that was based on real people. And the historical guy who was played by Damian Lewis in Band of Brothers, the guy he was based on, he was a lieutenant at the time, and everything I've read about him and his leadership, and I've read a couple of the autobiographies as well, and I've read the original book that it was all based on, and it's just the way he was. He could embody perfectly sort of leading by example and yet be so sort of unassuming about it and sort of quietly confident in a way that inspired his men to do incredible feats that even to this day have potentially never been equalled. I don't want to upset anyone by saying that, but
I'm going to read up about
and okay, so there's the Americanized angle of it, and the fact that it's been made into a TV show, it all gets a bit populist, doesn't it? And
yeah,
I'm sure he wasn't quite as great as he's been made out to be, but even so,
none of us are.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the thing. It is that quiet confidence, isn't it? And like leading by example, all of those things. Yeah. They're the kind of like some people think a really loud, kind of brash, like leader is and that works for some people. But I think absolutely. Yeah, I think that means you take your team with you rather than drag them along.
Yeah, and I think there's two particular stories about him that I think really stand out for me. That is why he's kind of my pick. One of them is that their unit was parachuted behind enemy lines. I think it was the night before D-Day, because obviously they're the paratroopers and everything.
Yeah,
he lost his weapon during the jump, and he made it through the entire D-Day without a weapon. And yet, some of the feats that his unit pulled off during that through his leadership, and that I can't think of a better example of being effective as a leader than going to war without a weapon and still basically winning your battle because you're that effective at leading others who have theirs.
Yeah, they're like extensions of your body. You don't need your own weapon. You've got your team. No, but
Yeah, and it's and things like that. And then the other thing was after the war, the Korean War kicked off pretty soon after. I think it was like 5 years later, wasn't it? And they asked him to go back, and he said, "No, I've had enough. I'm not doing it anymore." And it would have been so easy, I think. A more arrogant, more ego-driven leader would have been like, "Yeah, I'm well up for that. I'll go for it." He was humble and self-aware enough to say, "No, do you know what? I've done my bit. Someone else can do it this time."
I love that. I can see why you picked him.
Yeah,
I love great people like that. Thankful to him, to be honest. I feel like we should probably say that.
Yeah. And I love Damian Lewis. So in my head, it's just Damian Lewis.
Well, yeah, and actually, he's quite a good example himself in a lot of ways. But when they were filming Band of Brothers, they all met everyone who was still alive from the war who was in the Band of Brothers. The actors met their sort of alter egos, if you like. So he actually ended up being really good friends with them. They stayed in touch. They corresponded for the rest of his life. So quite
that's
nice.
Really nice.
Lovely story.
Yeah, isn't it? Story time.
Anyway, so thanks for putting me on the spot there. That was good.
Thank you for sharing.
Next person who asks me will get a different answer, just to be fun. There we go. Well, I think we're at the end. Only one more thing that I always do at the end if I have time is just give you a chance to, basically plug your business. So if there's any service or website that you want to point people towards, if they need your kind of help.
The system support your business needs. It's we released it in August and we had a review and we've changed the name slightly, but it's the same service and it's all about supporting it. So we don't have an IT department. And it's not really about the hardware, though, but it's more software, maintaining your CRMs, fixing glitches. You know, when something just isn't working, you're like, oh, now I've got to spend an hour doing this. You don't. You just email us and we'll sort it for you. So,
we do three different subscriptions. So we've got bronze, silver and gold. Within each of the subscriptions, you get a certain amount of hours from us. So we can work on, housekeeping for your CRM, so just keeping all the data correct, or like Steph said, fix any problems, or if you have any questions throughout the month about things like cybersecurity or GDPR, we can go and find out about it for you, let you know if we don't know the answer ourselves. Also, contacting any of your CRM system if something's going wrong. So, for instance, we will speak to, just say you're using Monday.com, we'll pick up with Monday.com, figure out the problem, fix it. And then, so you don't have to worry about that. So, yeah.
And process improvement as well, because as we then work with our clients, we found like we've already, honestly, the first week we launched it, we started getting people signing up. It was brilliant. But something we've learned from that is that as we work, obviously, on the business and with them, even though it's not a lot, we start learning things and we can start just tweaking processes and just giving them little extra wins. That's something. Thank you, David, for the opportunity.
Yeah. And if you need to find us, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube,
podcasts.
So yeah.
And TikTok is coming soon. I'm so excited.
So yeah, great. Basically, if you're having IT issues, then don't do what I would do and hit things with a hammer. Get in touch with Steph and Debbie. Don't be like David. Go to Stebbington Ltd.
I might use you for a LinkedIn post tomorrow. Don't use notepads. Don't smash computers. Contact Stebbington. Boom.
I mean, I joke, but I had a former colleague who would literally throw laptops out the window if they stopped working.
Don't get me wrong, there's been times where I've told my laptop that's where it's going.
Just frisbee it.
Never.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, guys. Really appreciate it. And
thank you so much.
Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed that one. It was certainly different, wasn't it? If you would like to learn more about Stebbington Ltd and what they do, particularly if you're a small business owner or a company founder and you're looking for some help with automation or IT, please do get in touch with Steph or Debbie. I'll put their website details and contact information in the episode description so you can find them easily. Thoroughly recommend a chat if you are having any kind of process or business management or admin or IT kind of struggles. I'm sure they can help you. And if you'd like to learn more about leadership, you can, of course, always get in touch with me as well. My LinkedIn profile and also link to the website in the episode description as well. So reach out, find out more about Leading with Integrity, our leadership programs, our training, our mentoring, and how we can help you, particularly if you're a new or first-time leader. And that's all we've got time for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next time. Remember, be a leader, not a boss.